Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the All Words Are Free podcast slash YouTube channel. I haven't been here in a while, it must be said. Yeah, I feel like it feels like it's been a really, really long time since I've recorded a podcast episode, and it isn't that long, it's only a couple of weeks. But I think doing one where it's just me, like a video like this, has been a hot minute. So it's nice to be back, nice to be back at it. Please excuse the background, let's just not talk about that. Let's just put my arm here and nobody will see. Um, but yes, it's been a time. As a quick catch up, so work's ramping up. I'm coming to the end of my masters, which is shocking. It's gone so quickly, and coming to the end of that, I'm writing my dissertation. So yeah, it felt very overwhelming at first. Kind of not really knowing where to start because I've never done it before, and yeah, getting a bit kind of overwhelmed by that. But now I've got a solid outline planned with loads of subtitles, and it's very kind of organized in a way that I can just kind of then take a couple sections a day, kind of thing, bash it out, etc. So that feels good. It's sad to be leaving the lab group as well. I feel like so I've just been on a conference, which is my other news, to Liverpool. So it's about the third time that I've been to Liverpool. And yeah, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. It was very nice from the point of view of getting excited again. Like I say again about science in the way that I kind of have ebbs and flows. And I have this in a lot of things, not just my studies. So it was really nice to yeah get back into that realm, get back into a very sciencey mindset. It made me really excited about like a poster I'm going to be presenting at the end of this month, and thinking about like presenting my work in a Viva kind of format or just a kind of meeting kind of format. Yeah, it got me back excited for that sort of thing. So that's really nice. And yeah, I think it was a really nice kind of bonding experience with the people as well, which kind of makes it sting a little bit more about me leaving soon. So, come see, come out. But yes, so as I said, that's all been going on. So I haven't been here in a while. I did do a little Liverpool diary on the old Substack, which was nice. I think just being at the conference felt like a different world, and so it feels like pre and post conference is like it feels like the week before the conference was forever ago, and so that's why it feels like I haven't done anything in a while. But again, I feel like I haven't sat here recording for a long time, so it's nice to get back to it and get back to my like video essay commentary things. And that brings me on to the topic of the day. So, today we're going to be talking about ghostwriters and celebrity novelists. So, not necessarily mutually exclusive. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. And I'm going to be, yeah, focusing in on ghostwriting overall as a profession. And then we're going to go into like what I think of like celebrity books, from a biography perspective, but also from a fiction perspective, especially from a fiction perspective. And yeah, this has kind of been inspired by a couple of conversations I've had recently, a couple of kind of videos I've watched. It's kind of it's not an old topic because I think it's always ever present, especially with the kind of increase in celebrity novels coming out, particularly in the crime genre, which I'll get onto. Um, but yeah, we're gonna delve in and see what I think. Okay, so first off, the good side. I just hit the microphone. I'm sorry. Somebody just like earbud exploded with the headphones. Um, so there are a lot of good sides to having ghostwriters for particularly um, celebrity work. So I think that celebrity names sell, right? So getting somebody's name on a particular book is going to draw in a big audience. That's really going to get money in for the industry. This is not something that I'd actually thought of before. But there was a Jack Edwards video I recently watched. I keep mentioning Jack Edwards in all of these like things. In the past like three things, I think I mentioned him. It's just because I'm watching a lot of his videos. Um, and they're inspiring me for my own kind of book talk. But I hadn't thought of this before, that having somebody's name on the book obviously makes it sell. So from a marketing perspective, that's great. But what is marketing for if not to sell the book and therefore get revenue? And so I think it shows that how important these things are for getting money in for the industry to then help kind of you've got that revenue there to market and encourage fresh writers or new writers, first time novelists, and you've got that money there to then invest in them. And I think that's really special, and yes, something I hadn't thought of before. But that makes sense. Bestsellers, no matter if they're celebrity or not, celebrity linked or not, bestsellers are there to gain revenue for then, well, for the company, and then the company or the publishing house can then use that money for different things. And yeah, I think that's a really good point, and that's a huge advantage to having a celebrity name on a book. Um, and also from the other perspective of being a ghostwriter, um, the writers have chosen to do this. So I guess to kind of preface this, I should say what a ghostwriter is. So a ghostwriter is somebody who writes a novel, writes a book, writes whatever it may be. It could be an article, anything. And then somebody else's name is on the finished product. Sorry, a huge ass like airplane just flew past, and it was literally started flying towards me, like with the window. I was literally like, why is it so big? It's like getting, it's so close. That's crazy. I was like, what's going on? Um, but yes, so it's just an airport nearby. Yeah, so a ghostwriter is somebody whose name isn't on the finished work, but there may be something within the book. Maybe it's in the acknowledgement. It says like thank you to, especially if it's a celebrity novel, maybe something like thank you to XYZ for their advice or for helping create this, like make this idea a reality, something along those lines. Um, and yeah, I think there's definitely positives in the way that, I mean, a writer's chosen to do it. It gives writers funds for, if they want to do other work, or maybe it's just something that they're very happy to just do and not be known. Because sometimes you have celebrity or being famous in that way isn't for everybody. So there's that side to it too. And maybe they just want to write, and if it gets them money, then great. And also, it can give writers a platform to then share their own work after. And this isn't necessarily, and I'll come on to this, but this isn't necessarily something that I would like to do, but I think there's definitely something to be said for getting your foot in the door. So, you want to become a professional novelist, there's steps to that. Not everybody is going to have an instant bestseller and get straight on with their name and be able to live off their works. Instead, it may be that they have to ghostwrite first, and then they can get their foot in the door and publish under their own name. Maybe it's a case of you have to write something that isn't really your magnum opus, and then the magnum opus can come out when you've become popular. So you may be writing to what's very popular at the time, and then you can bring out your like slightly oddball project. Read me. Um, but I think getting into writing has so many different pathways, and I think if ghostwriting is your way to get into the industry, there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. That's fun. You do you, baby. Okay, so now, and potentially this may have been implicated by my tone in the good. Like everything I said was good, like, but I do generally think those things. I think there are definitely positive sides to this industry because it is an industry. The bad. So I've always had a thing about ghostwriting in that a lot of the time writers are left unrecognized, or at least especially in the past. I think this has got better from my kind of very naive, kind of surface level understanding of it. But I think this has got better in the way that, writers are, there's more co writers on the cover of things. So you've got like a really famous author's name. I keep hitting this microphone. A really famous author's name, and then like a with XYZ. And it tends to be that the really famous author has come up with the idea, and then the with XYZ has actually kind of written it, fleshed it out, things like that. But I think there is still a lot of cases of ghostwriting that have gone still maybe unknown or unmentioned. There's the whole thing about Ian Fleming and Bond novels, and that maybe his secretary actually wrote them. And that's a conspiracy theory slash hypothesis, whatever. So allegedly. Um, but I think it's sad to know that a lot of writers' work they've just had no credit for whatsoever. And sure, they may have been paid for that, but I don't know, how these things worked in the past. And if they were paid for it and they were happy with it, again, that's their choice. But I think them having no recognition whatsoever, that feels like a drawing the short straw. I also think that because those authors are slightly cloaked in some way, just mentioned in the acknowledgements even today, they can be left out of conversations regarding the book. So whether that's interviews, whether that's like the publicity of the book, and again, especially the publicity side, if it's linked to a celebrity, then the celebrity is going to get that marketing in and be the main kind of draw for any publicity, any journalism. But I don't know. I worry that, especially if it's a book with like the more layers or themes and things like that, having somebody um, talk about your book, but not in the way that you necessarily intended. I think that could be a bit of a rum deal. And again, I guess it depends how you go into the project, right? So you could go into a project with a celebrity or whoever having given you a plot idea, and then you just flesh it out. And so you could almost be seen as an editor in a way, obviously, depending on how much you write. You could be there's a celebrity and their team or whatever have said you should get a book out there. You know, we want to get some money in. You need some funds or whatever's going on. Let's get you a book out there, and they hire somebody to write the book from scratch. Maybe given like a very brief of like the genre, something like that. So then you say, well, you've come up with all the good core characters and things. And if you're not really given the opportunity to talk about it, a bit of a run deal. Um, or obviously you could have written something and then somebody else completely takes the credit for it. But that isn't necessarily ghostwriting, that's plagiarism. And so I guess that raises the kind of interesting point or conversation about where does ghostwriting end and plagiarism start? And obviously, I think if you're hired as a ghostwriter, there is a contract involved, and there is an agreement involved. And so that is your ghostwriting. And if there's no agreement involved and stuff stolen, that is plagiarism. Um, but yes, I think it's an interesting one, and I think that Yellowface touches on that really well on that topic. Because I can't remember the characters' names now, but where the writer, not Julie, I'm gonna call her Julie. I'm sorry, it's not Julie, but I'm just gonna say Julie. Jem, Julie, where Julie, and is it Athena? It's Athena. It is Athena. So where Julie takes Athena's notes and then makes it into a novel, and she sees it as more of a it's a publishable thing. And I've talked about Yellowface on this channel in the past, but she makes it into something that she deems as more publishable. And if we believe that, then you could say that, well, if Julie's role was that, she was given she took those core ideas and then developed it into a novel that is much better than what Athena had originally proposed or written, you could call that the role of an editor. Now, she's an unsolicited editor because Athena didn't ask for that, and Athena may have developed the ideas and then it would have been published under her own name with her own editors. And so, obviously, it's a messy situation in the fact that realistically, Julie did steal those ideas. I'm going to be driving someone absolutely crazy who's like, it's not Julie. Julie's ideas. But it brings up that question of where does the creative process kind of blur, and is it original bouncing off idea? Is it that person that has the full creative credit, or is it the person who's fleshed it out and added layers? And it depends what level you come in. And I think that's the kind of blurry thing about ghostwriting, and that if your name's not front and center on it and you're not classed as the author, then that is a ghost written piece with contracts involved and everything. But it's interesting to kind of think about, well, who has the most creative rights over it? Who has the rights to talk about it, to develop it, to change it if necessary? And I think that, yeah, it's a really interesting one because obviously the original ideas are the original ideas and they are necessary to have things fleshed out. But then could you say, well, the ghostwriter is given those original ideas, so they don't have any kind of liberties in that way, but they do create everything from those original ideas. And again, it depends on the details of those original ideas as well. They could be very, very detailed, in which case, it's more of like an editor style role versus they're very brief. And so I think there's a lot of nuance there. Okay, so the genre. So you see how I get the good, the bad, and the genre? I thought it was quirky. So before going on to like the whole celebrity of it all, I thought it would be interesting to talk about fiction versus nonfiction. So, you can have a celebrity book that is a fiction novel. So it's a novel, could be, I don't know, a romance by Kendall Jenner. And I don't know what Kendall Jenner put to my head because they did write a book. It could be, yeah, so like a novel written by a celebrity, quote unquote, written by a celebrity that's been ghostwritten, or it could be a biography that's then been written by somebody else. Now, I guess so. A biography that's been written by somebody else is kind of natural, right? I mean, it's a biography, not an autobiography. I don't think there's anything unusual about that. I think a memoir is the kind of other side related to novel and ghostwriting. So you've got novel written by celebrity, memoir written by celebrity, but they've been ghost written. And I think that for me, it seems less unusual, quote unquote, to have somebody ghostwrite a memoir. Now, I think a memoir is obviously extremely personal, and I think fiction can be extremely personal as well. But I think a memoir is obviously, you're telling your own story, right? It's very, very personal. But I think there's authenticity isn't the right word, but I think the person whose name it's attached to has much more authority and almost credibility in taking the kind of license over that work and the credit over that work because it's their literal life story. They've sat down with the ghostwriter, or for a memoir, I say probably the writer. I guess it is ghostwriter because they if they've got the celebrity's name on the front of the cover, the front of the book. But they've sat down with the writer and gone through everything, and I feel like you go through it with a finer toothed comb. And I think obviously different celebrities are going to have different ways of doing it as well. Certain celebrities might be very, this to be fiction or non-fiction, might be very zoned in and reading it and sending edits and requests and things like that, versus somebody who's just kind of like, yeah, it's fine, and maybe sometimes haven't even read it themselves. Um so I think it's really interesting. But for a memoir, I think that yeah, they definitely have more license over what's gone on, in the way of they kind of have more ownership over it. Versus fiction, where I feel that depending on their level of input, that the ghostwriter may have more credit as far as the ownership goes. And again, like I say, this depends on how much the celebrity is kind of added to it, interacted with it. Um, but it feels more natural to have a ghost to me to have a ghost written memoir or kind of non-fiction biography style book versus a ghost written fiction book, because it's a fake story, and it can come, like I said, from anyone's ideas, but because it's a fake story, it feels like there's less you have less intellectual rights, and it's less of your intellectual property if you haven't actually written it, even if you've come up with the original ideas. um But I don't know. Let me know what you think. Maybe I'm unfounded. Maybe I'm wrong. Back to the celebrity of it all. So I think there is definitely a stigma associated with celebrity books. And I confess that if I see a book with like a celebrity's name on it, I automatically like bristle. Um, because oh, I just said bristle then. I'm sorry, that was so funny. But I automatically do like bristle because I don't know whether it's an authenticity thing. But to me, because of the whole marketing side, and again, there is massive positives to this, and I think that celebrity novels have probably done a lot for the industry. But I think this links to genres as well, and like people feeding into a genre, but I'll get onto that. Um, I do bristle because I think that there's this kind of bias underlying, where I think, oh, it's a celebrity, so it's not going to be good. Or oh, it's a celebrity, so they're just an opportunist. And it does feel opportunistic because names get sales. And I also think this is related to a person's profession. So I think someone like an actor or a singer will be seen as quote unquote less able to take on this like intellectual pursuit than somebody like a TV presenter or a quiz master or a documentary maker whose brand is this kind of Oxbridge coded intelligence. So this links directly to Richard Osman, so the author of the Thursday Murder Club, and he's talked a lot, in like chat shows and things, about like his writing process and putting things together and how he enjoys it, etc. And that feels more authentic because he is a quizmaster and known for going to Oxford and or Cambridge or whatever, than a book by like an actor, um, because it just feels further removed for an actor to do something like writing. And I think that is incredibly biased. And I think that's incredibly confining. I think it's putting people in their neat little boxes. And I don't think it's true that somebody who's a singer or an entertainer in that way cannot write a book. I don't think that's true at all. I think anyone can write if they want to. And I think, as well as profession, that perceived gender comes into it as well. And this links to genre too. So, starting with the kind of perceived gender. So, if it's especially I think if you're a young female actor or singer or something that isn't naturally quote unquote kind of smart, um, it's more of a creative pursuit kind of thing, or a vocational pursuit in that way, then you're seen as less likely to be able to write a novel. I honestly think generally maybe young women, or people perceived as female are just seen as less able to write a novel. And I also think just from an age perspective, broadening out even further, that novels are seen as the work of older people. I think this is a legacy from the past. I think a lot of authors were middle-aged to older men, white men specifically, and that anyone else was seen as not intellectually at the level to be able to put together something like a novel, which is so interesting to kind of see and also very upsetting. It's also nice now to see the kind of broader range of people where you've got an array of different names and backgrounds on the shelves, and that's incredible, and I love it. Um, but this links back to genre, and so I think that, if you are a young woman and you write romance, you're like, yeah, that sounds about right. My video cut out and the light has changed. It's literally been 5 minutes and the light has changed. Wow, wow. But yeah, so I was so the idea of like a young woman writing something like a political like novella, very intense, it just feels wrong to the general population in that very stereotypical way. I think we're breaking away from that, definitely. I think that women have been allowed to pursue more intellectual, quote unquote, style novels. Great. We want everyone to be able to write anything they want. And if a young woman wants to write a romance novel, then she can write a romance novel, and that's fine. Because that's what we like to see. We like to see different types of voices in all different genres. Um, but yes, I think there's definitely that the style of book factors into whether it feels kind of authentic from the